The son of one of the victims of the mass shooting at Von Maur 15 years ago shares his thoughts on this tragic anniversary.
As Brian Mastery reports, it's a day of reflection for so many people here in our community, from employees to victims' families to first responders and those who cover that story that day. And
Brian was at the scene of the shootings back then. He joins us live in the studio.
John, these are the 8 people who died that day at Von Maur, victims of a mass shooting by a single teenage gunman. Gary Scharf and John McDonald, they'd stopped there to shop that day. The rest, Beverly Flynn, Angie Schuster, Diane Trent, Gary Joy, Jan Jorgensen, and Maggie Webb, they were all employees of the family-owned department store. Several of them were on the top floor gift wrapping. Remember, Christmas was just 3 weeks away. Gary Scharf was just 48 years old when he died. He had stopped at Von Maur to do some shopping on his way home to Lincoln from a business trip when a single teenage gunman entered the department store at Westroads Mall.
There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about my father. And I think that what makes losing a family member to gun violence unfortunate and somewhat unique is that for anyone that dies in the case of gun violence, it's pretty much always preventable. I think that that's what makes it's so difficult.
15 years ago, his son Steve was a sophomore at UNL.
I was just getting around to putting up some photos and some mementos from my dad yesterday around my house. And I put up some mounted fish that he had from a fishing trip that we both took when I was a kid. So there are things like that where it sounds small, but it's a little thing in life where, I got it just on the wall where I wanted it to be. And it's kind of my own personal tribute, but then also just a nice memento to bring back a lot of fond memories.
Steve Scharf is troubled by all the mass shootings in the United States since Von Maur in 2007. Similar horrors for families at the Orlando nightclub, Sandy Hook Elementary, Uvalde, Texas, and so on. Sadly, too many to remember in 15 years. His advice?
I would like people to remember my father as a loving and kind man. I would like them to consider researching the gun violence epidemic and advocating for common sense solutions at the state level. Call your elected representatives and tell them what changes you want to be made. And more broadly, I would like it if we worked as individuals on developing a culture to prevent this kind of thing by reaching out to young men and reminding them that tomorrow is a day worth living and that committing these kinds of atrocities doesn't help them or anyone else.
Again, we look at the victims that day. Remember, there were a number of other survivors who were seriously hurt. It is still, John Lawrence, so hard to believe that was just 15 years ago. Back to you.